We've all found ourselves scrolling endlessly through photo websites and reading dozens of reviews to try to figure out which lights are the best to buy. For example, you might ask yourself questions of like, do I need strobes, continuous lights, one light, three lights? How much power is not enough? How much power is too much? Well, trust me, you are not alone in these questions. There are so many options out there and it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Honestly, I could talk about lighting for hours, and I usually do, but today I want to give you a simple roadmap, a set of clear, practical questions to help guide your decisions as you build your first lighting kit. I'm Lindsay Adler, and I want to help you take the guesswork out of choosing your lighting kit to make things a little less intimidating. So let's jump right in. Let's begin with the very first question you need to ask yourself. What kind of space are you going to be shooting in? Your shooting environment really matters because it affects how much power your lights need and what kind of gear will actually fit into your space. Now here we're going to talk a little bit about wattage. Wattage refers to the power output of your lights. The higher the wattage means the brighter the light and the more ability to cover a space, especially overpowering ambient light. Now, typically more power is useful, but it usually means an increase in cost. If you're working in a small home studio or maybe a tight corner room, you'll be fine with a lot less power, maybe in the 100 to 400 watt range. If you're in a mid-sized studio, something compact, you could probably work with around 250 to 500 watts, and that's going to give you a lot of flexibility. But if you're shooting in a large studio or shooting large groups of people, you're going to want 500 watts or more. This helps you get the amount of output and depth of field you need, especially when you're shooting those groups. Now, there's one other thing to consider. If you're shooting in studio and on location, I'd recommend looking into battery-powered strobes that also plug in. This is going to give you a lot of flexibility without sacrificing power, but know that the battery-operated strobes do tend to cost a little bit more. So next question. What types of subjects do you photograph? This helps determine how many lights that you really need. Now, of course, personal style is going to come into play as you continue to grow in your photography, but if you're primarily shooting headshots, newborns, super simple portraits, you can absolutely start with one or two lights and still make beautiful images. But if you're shooting more stylized portraits or personal branding, maybe corporate headshots, having 2 or 3 lights is going to give you more control and flexibility. 3 lights goes a long way into making countless variations for your setups. If you do more stylized shoots, creative setups, you want 3 or more lights. Rim light, background light, layered lighting effects. I think of it like casting a play. Each light has a role. Key, rim, fill, background. And the question is, how many actors do you really need to tell your story? Sometimes one is enough, and other times you want the whole ensemble. Next up, let's talk about a big question that's popped up in recent years: strobe versus continuous. With advancements in technology, both provide excellent options, but I have a lot to say here. I'm going to keep it simple between strobes and continuous. Strobes give you more power and are fantastic for freezing motion, overpowering ambient light, and achieving a lot of depth of field. These are the standard for most photographers. Continuous lights, specifically LEDs, are wonderful for beginners because you can see the lighting effects in real time. It's what you see is what you get. Continuous light is also imperative if you shoot video or plan to introduce video. LED continuous lights are not as powerful as strobes, which makes it a big challenge if you're shooting big groups where you need a lot of depth of field, or if you're trying to overpower ambient light in a scene. So next up, let's talk about what I think is probably the biggest question of all: your budget. It might be tempting to think, maybe I should just get a whole bunch of lights now and we'll figure out the rest later. But honestly, your money might be better spent on fewer lights and getting more of a variety of modifiers or accessories, or saving the money for other purposes. Maybe you only need the capabilities of a really inexpensive strobe. Or maybe you'd rather invest now in a pro level system. So I'd like to take a look at the options, pros and cons of each. And then when you're ready to buy, you'll have a realistic number in mind so that you don't overextend your finances. So here's a quick breakdown of some of the light source considerations. So first of all, entry level strobes. These are great for starting out. That's the whole point. They're affordable. They're often strong enough for most portrait uses, especially indoors. The less expensive brands, they get the job done, but they usually lack speed, like recycle times, usually don't have as much output, and typically you'll have more misfires. But for many portrait shots, headshots, this might be an acceptable trade-off considering the price. Higher end pro strobes give you faster recycle times, more consistency, more reliability. And that matters a lot if you're shooting professional shoots or higher volume shoots. If speed and reliability are expected for the way you do your job, then maybe investing in the higher level strobes is the right choice. Now, battery powered strobes, we talked about this before. It gives you the ability to shoot on location, but many of them let you plug in to dual purpose in the studio. And having this option is great, but it usually means a higher price. And don't forget, you have to consider other costs like backup batteries for shooting on location. Speed lights are another option. They're ultra portable, so many budget-friendly options, but they lack strong modeling lights, and it's usually harder to preview what you're doing. Plus, they have a lot less power than strobes. While this next part isn't a question, you need to remember that there's some basic accessories that you need when you're buying your light. So for example, triggers. The triggers are going to allow your camera to talk to your strobe. Some offer TTL or high-speed sync options, which is great or necessary if you're shooting outdoors. But if you're mainly in the studio, a basic trigger is going to work just fine, and many brands have their own. Now, obviously, when you have lights, you're going to need something to put them on, like light stands. You need something sturdy, especially for your main light. And a quality stand, it protects your investment and your subject, especially if someone bumps your light. Now, I actually have a separate video all about choosing the right stands, linked to the description below. There are so many different modifiers to choose from, and a lot really do fundamentally the same thing, similar lighting effect, and other modifiers will have really specific uses and aren't super versatile. So I am going to overly simplify here, but I want to give you some easy guidelines for your first modifiers based on my own experience. So here are a few I recommend for most beginners. A 3-foot octabox is my go-to as a starter. It's super versatile, flattering, and it's small enough to fit in small spaces. If you're shooting full body or maybe larger groups, I'd look at something like a 5-foot octabox, or less expensive, I'd go with a large umbrella with diffusion. It gives you softer light, more even coverage across your scene. Now, if you have another light, like a second or third light to act as a fill or rim, I'd grab a 1x4-foot strip softbox. This is a great option. I use this all the time. It gives you nice directional light with soft edges. But I'd also get a silver and white bounce reflector, because this can help control the shadows, give you a little bit extra reflection. So I'd personally start with 1 or 2 solid modifiers, see how they work for the type of images I'm creating, and then build gradually. What I recommend is not right for every photographer, but I think it's a great place to start for the vast majority of people just jumping into studio lighting. So let's wrap this up and review the big picture questions you need to ask yourself when you're buying studio lighting. What subjects are you photographing? What kind of space are you shooting in? How many lights do you really need? What suits you more, strobes or continuous? What's your realistic budget? And don't forget accessories. When you can answer these questions, you will have some clarity on how to build your lighting setup, and a lighting setup that works for you, your space, your style, your workflow, your budget. And if you are still unsure, do not worry, ask the experts for help. The sales staff at Adorama is super knowledgeable, and they're to help you make informed decisions, whether you're shopping online or in person. And so if you come to them with the answers to these questions, it's going to make it so much easier. So if you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, definitely reach out. They will walk you through the options based on your needs, your budget, and your experience level. And again, obviously, come in with these questions prepared is going to make the selection a lot easier. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you all found this useful and hopefully this process a little less overwhelming. And if you did find it helpful, be sure to give this a like, subscribe, and check out the links in the description below for more videos related to lighting gear, modifiers, and some of my favorite tools in my studio kit. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.